All right, let's talk about Jauan Jennings and Brandon Aiyuk. Both posted some video content today. Well, technically, Jennings had it posted through Josh Dobbs, who is his teammate again. This was on their podcast. Josh Dobbs is a podcast. He was the quarterback at the University of Tennessee back in 2016 when Jauan Jennings was the receiver there. The two connected on a Hail Mary to beat Georgia as time expired. It was an amazing moment, and it's just so cool that both of these guys are now 49ers teammates, reminiscing about that time in 2016 when they connected on one of the famous plays in recent college football history.
Obviously is the Hail Mary. When we called the play, you weren't designed to catch the ball. And Coach Ozani called timeout, and he ended up switching you and Malone and moving you on the left. He's like, Jauan's the jumper. Jauan's the jumper. Jauan gonna make that contested catch. I still remember your hands like grabbing the ball and plucking out the sky for a touchdown. I can literally see it from my vantage point.
I relive that moment over and over in my head all the time. And I just remember you going to get the ball.
You were so excited, and everyone's like carrying you off the field. And you know when you get excited, you kind of like black out low-key. You took the Hail Mary ball and you just like chucked it all the way across the field. I'm like, bro, that's history right there. We can't let that thing go.
When I had chucked it, I saw you go get the ball, bro. I thought somebody from Tennessee would have it. I know somebody from Georgia wasn't going to take it.
So where is the ball now?
Dog, where is the ball?
I got it. It's back at the crib. It's back at the parents' crib. I got it. When he threw it, I was like, Jauan don't want it, so I guess I'm gonna just take it home.
That's cool with me, man. It's ours still.
It's ours.
Still.
So Jauan Jennings has been making huge catches even before his time with the 49ers. And what's really cool, he's also making huge throws. And his touchdown pass in college, because Jauan Jennings was actually a quarterback in high school, but on a trick play, he threw a touchdown pass to Josh Dobbs, who's now the 49ers backup quarterback at Tennessee. It was the same play, very similar design. I can't say same exact play because the one in the Super Bowl went from Jennings to Christian McCaffrey, the running back. But the same kind of cross-field throw following the trick to Jauan Jennings on the near side went to Josh Dobbs in college for a touchdown, and that inspired the 49ers call in the Super Bowl where Jauan Jennings threw to Christian McCaffrey. Now, I don't think that people realize how damn good Jauan Jennings was in the Super Bowl. This is going under the radar, but had the 49ers won that game, and if one more bounce of the ball goes their way, that probably happens, we might be looking at Jauan Jennings being the Super Bowl MVP right now. Not only did we see that big touchdown throw, we saw the clutch catch on the slant pattern and then the yards after the catch for the touchdown into the end zone in the second half for Jauan Jennings. Made so many big plays in that game, and then he's just a ferocious run blocker for the 49ers. And both guys that I'm talking about in this live today, Jauan Jennings and Brandon Aiyuk, they are both ferocious run blockers, which makes them so important to the 49ers. In fact, Aiyuk has been working on some of that balance, which I think is probably predominantly important in his pass catching game. But the workout mode has been activated for him. And a lot of the strength that he builds over the course of these off seasons, I think, is applied to how monstrous of a run blocker he is. Let's take a quick peek in to Brandon Aiyuk working. He's got ASU branded weights, so I'm guessing that he's at Arizona State. I think in the back on the wall there, it says Arizona State football. You can't quite read it. According to either Aiyuk or Lynch, I forgot which one it was, he has been around the 49ers facility, and that does indeed look like Arizona State behind him. You'll see the pitchfork right there on the weight. That is the Fear the Fork, Arizona State. That's Aiyuk back in his college stomping grounds, getting some balance work in here. Phase 2 of the 49ers offseason program begins in 12 days. That's on April 15th. That is when coaches can begin on-field work with players. They can't go full practice mode. That's not until OTAs, which is after the NFL draft. But before then, the phase 2 starts on April 15th. So we'll see if Brandon Aiyuk is present for that. Phase 1 is ongoing. That's completely voluntary. So is phase 2 and most of phase 3. It's the veteran mini camp in June that is required attendance. So I wouldn't read too much into anything. If Brandon Aiyuk is not around until June. Even Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel, who skipped other parts of the offseason program, showed up for the 49ers mandatory veteran minicamp. But there's Aiyuk working on some balance. What you'll see a lot of, and George Kittle posted about this today, this time of the offseason, this is after the players have taken about a month, some shorter than that, but they've taken some time off, or at least taken it a bit easy as far as the workouts go. Right now, it's about building the base to get ready for the hard offseason of work. So you see Brandon Aiyuk doing some of that balance work. George Kittle showed some of what he was doing on his Instagram channel today. I'm actually out in Nashville right now. This is where George Kittle's at. He's got his barn very near here in Tennessee, where he does all of his work. Guys will go back to their college workout facilities often during this time of the year. So you saw Brandon Aiyuk at Arizona State. But what they're doing is they're building that base, so their body is ready for the avalanche of work that's going to come over the course of this offseason. While we're on Brandon Aiyuk mode right now, then we can check out the article. This, again, is going to be in the description. And we have the George Kittle video as well. I'm going to get that up in a second. Maybe I got to add George Kittle to the headline. Mike's nice enough to send me the video. I wrote what Brandon Ayuk's potential new contract with the 49ers might look like. Go ahead and check that out. That is in the description. I get into the weeds about how they can actually lower the cap hit by about $6 million this year, from $14.1 million to about $8.1 million. So that way, and they could keep it low in 2025 and 2026. So that way they can pay Brock Purdy and fit that under the salary cap. So financial Tetris happening for the 49ers. And I think they have every ability to continue playing it. Let's take a look at George Kittle's workout mode right now. This is about building the base. This is what they were talking about and earlier. And I could even take this off the screen. Jauan Jennings and Josh Dobbs no longer part of the conversation. Neither is Brandon Aiyuk. This is George Kittle working out on the barn here in the Nashville area. Early offseason is reserved for priming the body for the work to come. Marches against resistance, emphasizing extension through the hip, knee, and ankle. You see Kittle doing that in Nashville, and then you see Aiyuk doing this in Tempe, Arizona. A lot of ankle strengthening, a lot of balance work. Again, it's the priming work for the rest of the off season. While you're here, check this out. We could get deep into the Brandon Aiyuk contract, but I wanted to give you a little bit of the workout update here on this beautiful Wednesday evening. We'll be back in the Bay Area tomorrow for a handful of days. So open to your suggestions. You'll see we got some surprise locations in store for the show. They should be fun. And we got some good food coming up as well. Help you really get through the dead part of the off season. We're officially in the dead part of the off season. Not the dog days. Those aren't going to come until summer training camp. I like calling those the dog days. Right now, though, it's early April. It's slowly becoming ramp up time for some of these players. Free agency has slowed down. Yes, the 49ers made a signing today, Patrick Taylor Jr., the running back, but right now it's building the bridge to the draft. We can talk about somebody like Justin Simmons. He's still out there. 49ers could, just be waiting it out with Justin Simmons as long as they can to see if that safety market continues cratering. I know that Julian Blackmon re-signed with the Colts for up to $7.7 million yesterday. I think that's a little bit above what the 49ers budget was. Just when I do look at my salary cap sheet, then I see and I, run some of the numbers. And so much of this is guesswork even for the 49ers because you don't know how big the cap is going to be in 2025 and 2026. But you have to make educated guesses. You have to make smart financial decisions as far as allocations of money. And you have to predict how much you think you can put into each position now and still be okay to not have the sink run over when you have to pay Brock Purdy. I look at it as the 49ers have a budget of about $4 to $5 million comfortably at that safety position. Julian Blackmon re-signed with the Colts for $7.7 million. So obviously it's a little bit over budget. I think the 49ers would be willing to push the budget a little bit for somebody like Justin Simmons. Blackmon is not at the tier of Simmons. He's younger, but Justin Simmons has more interceptions than any player in the NFL since 2018. This is a 30-plus interception guy. This is an all-pro player. He is still a free agent. He's somebody who has experience in Vic Fangio's scheme, and Brandon Staley, who's now doing a lot of the whiteboard stuff for the 49ers defense, came up under Fangio. Seems like it'd be a dream fit, but it'd only be a dream fit if the 49ers can budgetarily make it work. I mean, they've been the most aggressive team in football spending-wise over the past half decade. So they're going to be even more aggressive moving forward if they're going to pay Brock Purdy. They're trying to pay Brandon Aiyuk. I obviously wrote about that this morning. So you have all those factors for the 49ers. You've got to be very cost efficient at marginal positions like this safety spot. With Blackman too, when I talked to John Lynch, he made it sound like they didn't guarantee anybody, and he went out of his way to say this, they didn't guarantee anybody a starting job that came in to visit. That was Jauan Jennings, who ended up signing with the Seattle Seahawks, and then Julian Blackman, who ended up re-signing with the Colts. Sounds like the 49ers did not in any way say, hey, you're going to start if you come in. I think they said, we want you to compete. We'll see where Talanoa Hufanga is coming off the ACL. Lynch said the progress in the rehab is going well there, and we'll see how Jair Brown looks in year 2. So one of the things, too, is if there's a guy that's coming off being a starter and the Colts offer him to be a starter again, and the 49ers don't offer him to be a starter, obviously the 49ers probably won't be offering as much money, but also there's not as much security for that particular player. And if that was the nature of the 49ers conversation with Julian Blackman when he visited, as John Lynch hinted that it was, if he has another opportunity to start somewhere, such as his former team, then Blackman is more likely to go there. I think that if we're talking about Justin Simmons, the equation changes. If we're talking about Justin Simmons, that second safety spot, if everybody's healthy, will be determined between Talanoa Hufanga and Jair Brown, with Hufanga having an all-pro pedigree. So he would have the inside track to that if he could recover 100% from the ACL. But Justin Simmons is somebody who would show up and start. 49ers can also run 3 safety sets if they do pick up another safety. 49ers can go with creative nickelback formations. Brandon Staley has used the star position. He calls it the star. We've seen Jalen Ramsey play that before. We've seen Derwin James play that before with the Chargers. That's just basically a really versatile nickelback that is roving all over the formation and is able to take out a slot receiver. You know, sometimes the opponent's top receiver, like Cooper Kupp for the Rams, he's going to line up in the slot 65% of the time. So you're going to want to move, if you're shadowing him, you're going to want to move an outside cornerback inside regardless to play the slot. So if Deommodore Lenoir plays the star position, that versatile amoebic position that Brandon Staley has included in his defenses before, that would make sense. But you could also potentially have a bigger body, somebody like Justin Simmons come down there. Maybe if you've got some of these tight ends who are split out into the slot. The NFL offenses are just so versatile now that I think the 49ers, they've been trying to do this for a couple of years. They've been trying to make their secondary and their pass coverage more multiple. That's why they brought Steve Wilks in, because he was a guy that knew the secondary well, and he tried some new coverage combinations. But where the Steve Wilks experiment failed is that he wasn't able to marry what he was bringing coverage-wise to the table with the 49ers pass rush. And the rush and the coverage did not compute together the way the 49ers wanted to. A lot of the problems could be traced back to the fact that Wilks, I think, used the linebackers a little too liberally in pass coverage first instead of run stopping, and the run defense fell off a cliff. So when you look at what Staley might do with the 49ers, well, I think Kyle Shanahan has told him, when you're scheming stuff up, and Nick Sorensen has told him, because Nick Sorensen's the boss of the defensive side as the coordinator, we got to get back to stopping the run. We've got to be a top 5 run defense with the personnel that we have. We can't be number 26 like they were last year, because that's going to screw up the pass defense as well, just because you're off balance as a unit. Anyway, 49ers Q&A time. I'm ready to answer some of your questions. Hopefully you have some good ones. Karen Hardy says, I love the memory with Jauan and Dobbs. It'll be fun to see them together again. 49ers hope that they don't get to see Dobbs throwing all too much to Jauan Jennings, because Dobbs is the backup quarterback, but they've got that insurance. I think you could count on one hand, or at least on 2 hands, the amount of NFL starting quarterbacks that played the entire season without missing time due to injury last year. Brock Purdy was one of them that missed a little bit of time due to injury last year, just within the course of games, right? But still, it was one of those situations where Sam Darnold was needed at times for the 49ers, and that's why you need that QB too. I mean, the 49ers know better than anybody that you need depth at that quarterback position following what happened in 2022. Will the 49ers draft a tight end? Well, probably more likely after today. Brock Wright was snatched back by the Detroit Lions. 49ers offered him the $12 million contract. Detroit matched the offer. Restricted free agent, that means no bidding wars happening here. If the Lions match the offer, they keep the player. So the 49ers still have the hole at that second tight end position. We can open up the roster if you want to take a look at that. Why don't we do that? 2024 49ers 90-man depth chart. Just a casual show, some good questions here. And we can frame some of our answers with this right here. So initially, at the start of today, had Brock Wright in this spot, but Braden Willis is back there. I mean, Cam Latu, I don't have him making the 53-man roster right now because spots are earned and not given on the 53. Even if he makes it, they still got one more spot to fill. Tongas is the practice squad guy. That's what he was last year. So I think the 49ers are looking for another body at that tight end position. Do I think that Dwelly will come back? That's an insurance option. I think that's a fallback for the 49ers. But we'll see what will happen with the draft. Now, they may want to draft somebody or go into the draft with option power, so they get Dwelly back as a backstop. That's totally possible, if not probable. But we'll see. Dwelly, up until this point, has signed 6 separate one-year contracts with the 49ers. So if he's back this next season for 2024, it'll be 7 separate one-year contracts for Ross Dwelly. Does the addition of Brandon Staley make the 49ers value the cornerback position higher in the draft than usual? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think the addition of Staley makes them do that. I think that general contractual realities make them do that. Take a look at this. I'm going to highlight the corners. Charvarius Ward, only under contract through 2024. Isaac Yiadom, only under contract through 2024. Diomede Lenoir, only under contract through 2024. So your top 3 cornerbacks on paper are entering the final years of their deals, which means that I think naturally you start thinking about drafting a corner up high. If Isaac Yiadom plays as well as he did last year, then the 49ers are going to owe him quite a bit of money because he played really well down the stretch run for the Saints. If Charvarius Ward is an all-pro again, well, that could turn into a L'Jarius Sneed type of situation where the 49ers may have to franchise tag him. Diomede Lenoir, he's eligible for an extension now. It wouldn't shock me if the 49ers gave him one this offseason. Either way, you're going to probably need something else in the pipeline here. And even for the short term, I would consider drafting somebody. It could be really good value for the 49ers to use one of their higher draft picks on a corner that might be able to contribute sooner rather than later. And then they could keep on stocking the room to potentially take over for at least one of these guys in the future. You've got Womack, you've got Ambry Thomas, you've got Luter still under contract. Chase Lucas is more of a nickel back. And he's going to have to prove that he's valuable in that role as well, because special teams might be his forte, but 53-man rosters are not big. So you have to prove adaptability and usually have to prove worth, at least as a reserve in a certain phase of the game. But for Chase Lucas, I think he could be a really good gunner, but I think he's going to have to prove some worth as a backup nickel back for the 49ers. Do I think Ambry Thomas makes the team? I think it all depends on who they draft. As of right now, looking at this roster, there might be a battle for the final cornerback spot between Thomas, Womack, and Darrell Luter. I would think that Darrell Luter has an inside track. He's younger. There's probably a little bit more upward mobility there. But I think there's also a decent chance that all 3 of those guys would make it. But if they start adding at the position, it's going to force one of these guys out, in which case it would be less likely that Ambry Thomas makes the team. What do I think? Trade down from 31, more value in the second and third round, extra swings? Sure, but look at the roster right now. Where do you find room on the 53? I guess you have more room in training camp because it's a 90-man roster. You better be able to evaluate who's good and who's not in training camp without games, if that's the case, if you're going to bring in more than 10 rookies. I don't think anything because I'm not sitting in that war room and nobody knows anything, not even Lynch and Shanahan. Those guys, when they sit in that war room in late April and the first round starts going by and they've got their draft board out and they see which guys are going off the board and they could start predicting where guys are going to go based on the flow of the night. That's when they're going to make the decision. They're not sitting here on April 3rd saying, okay, we're going to trade back later this month or we're going to trade up later this month. They're going to make the decision if they do to trade up or trade back, especially to trade up. If they see a guy that they really like, they're having the draft meetings about that this week. They see a guy they really like. That's when you could pounce and move up. Just the numbers do suggest that if you've got a crowded 53-man roster, you might be better off taking an aggressive swing up. And with that, consolidating the amount of draft picks that you have to get theoretically a higher quality player so you can actually fit the players that you get on the 53-man roster. The last time that the 49ers had pick number 31 was in 2020. That was the last time they were Super Bowl runners up. So they had the second to last pick of the first round. They traded 31. They traded a 4th round pick and they traded a 5th round pick. They bundled those three together to move up 6 spots from 31 to 25. I think they leapfrogged the Packers that year and they were able to get Brandon Aiyuk. And I reported that the Packers were going to take Brandon Aiyuk if the 49ers weren't going to take him. So now we sit here several years later. We sit here in 2024, so 4 years later. And the player that the 49ers jumped up to pick is up on the screen right now. They are talking about giving him a very lucrative long-term deal. So that obviously worked out for the 49ers in 2020. Wouldn't surprise me if they traded up again. Invader 49er would like to be in the draft war room. Wouldn't we all? I think there's a way that you could get in there. You could win some kind of contest, some kind of sweepstakes, and you could be in the draft room. So good luck if you're part of that. I think they can move up far in the draft if you're willing to start trading away future year's capital. At a certain point, it's not worth it, though, right? But I think they can move up a good clump of spots through the strategy that I just outlined, the same one as 2020. Use your pick, use a 4, use a 5. Bundle them together. You can move up a few spots. That could be enough to satisfy what they're looking for in the first round. Now, if you want to move up half the round, well, then you're probably going to have to start thinking about future years picks to send that way. So maybe even a first rounder from next season. All right. I wanted to do a nice little 23-minute show. Christian McCaffrey's number. Sounds fun, right? Everybody check out the Brandon Aiyuk contract proposal that is up on the screen and enjoy. This is the article that you want to see if you're into this kind of stuff. I get deep into the numbers and how the 49ers can make this work. Hope you enjoyed the bonus show. We will talk to you soon.